Who's trying to get away from officers, but we have somebody who's driving an impaired vehicle, so doesn't have a lot of control of this vehicle. So hopefully, we haven't seen many cars out there. Hopefully it stays that way. It looks like he pretty much has an open road. We did get a clear shot of the driver from the side, so we can tell you it's a male suspect. All that we're hearing is LAPD is in pursuit of a man with a gun. We're working to get more information. We have the night sun now blasting the suspect and the vehicle down below. That is from LAPD. Sparks flying, making a right turn here on, looks like Toledo Street and York Boulevard in Highland Park. This is dangerous given the time of night and that people could be out and about walking. Fortunately, it doesn't look too busy, but this is a residential neighborhood. You see the black and whites behind them, the lights on, the flashing lights, and you know, you think about how you bring this to an end. The vehicle itself already impaired, that's one thing. They could do a pit maneuver because speeds are below the threshold of that, and they may have already conducted the spike strips, because you see on this angle too, more than one vehicle, more than one tire is completely blown out. So just literally riding on rims in the front. We've seen this play out on the air before, where eventually the car just has to stop and it'll catch fire. So let's hopefully it doesn't get to that point. And this guy has some sense just to pull over and give up, just surrender at this point, because I keep saying it, but it literally is only a matter of time. So if you're just joining us on LA Live News Tonight, 9:37 on this Friday night, we have our latest pursuit underway in Los Angeles in the Highland Park neighborhood. York Boulevard, Avenue 57. Looked like he just sort of needled his way in and out of some traffic there, just barely scraping by those other vehicles. I don't think he made contact with those other vehicles. Let's hope not. We haven't heard of any accidents prior. We're still working to figure out how the car was damaged in the way that it is. Literally, the tires blown off. That makes sense to me that there may have been a spike strip ahead of time. But to get to that point, it's been a while since those tires were damaged. So I'm not quite sure. Hopefully our assignment desk can work to get some more information there. But a whole lot of sparks on this Friday night in this pursuit in Highland Park. All that we know from LAPD is that they are trying to get this guy behind the wheel who is said to be armed with a gun. We're not sure what kind of gun that is. We don't know if there are other people inside the vehicle. Law enforcement always assumes the worst, always assumes that someone is armed inside, always assumes that there's somebody else in the vehicle. So they're using all of these little tidbits of information to try and figure out how to bring this pursuit to an end and do so without injuring anybody else. So with that said, that makes me think of why we bring you these pursuits, and that is to alert the public so that if you're in this neighborhood, that you don't go outside and get involved and accidentally become a innocent bystander or a victim to one of these pursuits, because we've seen it all too often when they turn deadly for the suspect or deadly for an innocent person out there. So now that we have a wider shot, you saw just the trail of LAPD officers behind. So we got one versus, I don't know, I think I counted at least 5 LAPD cruisers behind them here, making a slow right turn. Can you imagine trying to drive this vehicle in the shape that it's in? Okay, we're coming to a stop here. This is Fayette Street and Neva Place in Highland Park. Vehicle has come to a stop. You see the smoke from the car. You see the officers shining the light, guns drawn. At this point, officers are telling the suspect to surrender, get out, put your hands up. The protocol is to obviously obey officers, get out, hands up, and then typically walk backward and then eventually get down on the ground. You'll be put in cuffs. And that's when the officers can call it safe and over, and what they call officially a code 4. We have a long way to go until that happens, because it doesn't look like the suspect, even though the vehicle stopped, is going to come out as easily as we might think. So we're going to watch this play out here. You look at the officer's body language, one just sort of ran away, probably to communicate with the other officers and strategize on what they're going to do. You can see the suspect behind the wheel here. Can't quite tell what he's doing. One hand on the wheel, it looks like. Perhaps he's on the phone, perhaps he's just contemplating his options. Not a lot of options at this point. It doesn't look like the vehicle has any juice left or even just the ability to be able to continue on, because we've seen a cat and mouse game go on where officers have gotten to this point literally out of the vehicles. The suspect is stopped in a vehicle and then the suspect takes off. So we've seen that play out on the air. Hopefully that's not the case. I don't even think the vehicle, as mentioned, has the power to go any further given how damaged it is. I mean, the windshield wipers are going. I just saw that happen as well. So this could be, you know, one of those situations where either he has to be coaxed out. I don't know if any canines are on the scene yet, or officers will figure out, you know, one way or the other to get the suspect out if he just decides not to come out. Okay, so we're seeing some activity. One of his arms came out for a second. Okay, joining me right now is Dennis Zine. He is a reserve officer. He's with the LAPD for decades. Appreciate you jumping on the air with me, Dennis, on this Friday night. I'm doing my best to narrate this. Why don't you take it away? What are officers up against in this situation?
Well, I don't see a broadcast going right now. Are we on live TV at the moment?
Yes,
I don't see it.
yes, we're on channel Fox 11 Plus, which is channel 13. So if you want to switch over to channel 13, what you're going to see, Dennis, is a sedan.
Here we go.
Sedan that is surrounded, or actually just not in the front. Well, officers might be in the front, but you see the scene down below. The vehicle doesn't have any tires left in the front, literally riding on rims, came to a stop here on a residential street in Highland Park. Officers' guns have been drawn for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes now. And we do know it's a suspect, one man behind the wheel, reportedly armed with a gun.
Okay, so we're at a standoff between the units and the suspect or suspects in the car. I can see the suspect moving around in the car. Do we have only one suspect in the car?
As far as we know, but you know how that goes.
Right, right. There might be someone in the back or ducked down. So they're at a standoff, and I just tuned in to see where we're at with it. So obviously the officers will call for backup. They have, I think, 3 units there now. They'll bring in the canine if they need the canine, and the standoff will last for a bit until the individual decides to surrender, or they'll use some type of devices to neutralize and to bring the suspect out of the vehicle. They'll be negotiating as much as they can. If there is a weapon and the individual decides to use that weapon, that'll also exceed what the conversation goes. It goes into something more serious than the conversation. It looks like the car may be on fire or smoking somehow. We see smoke emitting from the vehicle.
Well, that was because the tires are blown out. I mean, there could be other damage, of course, but literally riding on rims. So there was a whole lot of sparks in this pursuit as well.
Yeah, I just tuned in to see the static mode as we are now at the stationary position with the units behind. It looks like they've got at least 3 units there. Additional units and the supervisor obviously be responding. The standoff may last for a while, or if there's the desire to exit the vehicle, but they'll be encouraging the individual to surrender. So we see a man with a gun. Apparently, a gun was involved in the situation, which obviously creates great. There we go. Now we're on the movement again.
Yeah. So I was just saying that I wasn't sure. I was explaining to our viewers, they've seen it too, the whole cat and mouse thing before, where the vehicle stops for a while and they taunt officers, and this is what we're seeing again. I just didn't think that the car had the ability to. I thought it was damaged enough, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So we're on the move again. Aldama Street and York Boulevard in Highland Park. Speeds, obviously, that's not the issue. It's, 20 miles per hour or so. But, obviously we have a dangerous person behind the wheel, armed, according to law enforcement, and doing anything they can, Dennis, to stay out of handcuffs. But you know, this can only go on for so long.
Well, we see that the right side of the car, extensive damage to the right side of the car. We see smoking, whether that's smoking tires or if the tires are giving out and maybe running on a rim, but the car definitely is not in good condition. That will only go for so long until it ceases to continue. And at that time, they can move in. But obviously, we've got an air unit overhead, units, I'm sure, supervisors now involved, if not at the scene. So this will continue until that car gives out. It doesn't look like the operator of that car intends to surrender. And the slow speed, obviously, is one factor. But the fact was we're a heavily populated area, and we encourage residents, if you see this coming, stay out of the way. We don't know if the individual is going to fire if there is a weapon, or they use the vehicle as a deadly weapon. So the bystanders need to stay out of the way of the unit, the police units that will be in pursuit, as well as this individual who's trying to flee at a very, very slow speed. Maybe the car is inoperable. It's going to become inoperable the way that he's moving very slow speed down the roadway.
Yeah, so now we're at Piedmont Avenue and Avenue 61, Highland Park. We picked this up in Highland Park, a sedan heavily damaged, not just the right side, tires gone in the front. LAPD had it stopped for some time, probably 5-6 minutes total. The driver thought that he could go a little bit further. Now we're stopped again here on Piedmont Avenue. At this point, you know, I think of having covered these for so long, why not just do a pit maneuver? Is it because the streets are so tight, or just because it's only a matter of time given how damaged the vehicle is?
Well, the problem with the pit maneuver is if the individual does have a weapon, that really puts the officers in great danger.
Yes.
You don't want to expose the officers to any more danger than they're exposed to. If he gets out of the car and starts firing at the officers, we don't know what he's going to do. Clearly, there's sufficient officers and backup at the scene, but they don't want to approach, if there's a possible weapon involved, to get involved in a shooting or to have an officer shot. It's not... No one's going to play John Wayne and play the hero. They'll play this out as long as it's going to take, but they're not going to jeopardize, and we don't encourage them to jeopardize their safety to approach if there's a possible weapon. And apparently that was the call. There was a weapon involved at some time during this pursuit. So with that caution, these officers obviously have families. They want to go home at night. We don't expect them to risk their lives in this situation when there's a possible weapon, or they could do a pit. Or they could do spikes. There's all kinds of things they could do, but the car is really not going to be able to operate for any length of time. As we see, it's got extensive damage. It's kind of like just putting along as the roadway, but I don't see it excessive speed or the ability to do that, and he'll just play this out as long as he can. We don't know. I don't know if there's one or more operators, passengers, possibly in the car with this individual, but we see it smoking, so that means there's obviously some extensive damage to either the tires or the engine or something where it's smoking like that. So it's going to be a while, apparently, until individual decides to exit the vehicle. Clearly sufficient officers there to take the individual into custody in a cautious manner because, you know, out of the car, on the ground, etc. So it's kind of cat and mouse as we proceed down the road, and now it's stopped again. He may be taunting the officers as we see his head out the driver's window. But clearly sufficient units at the scene. There's probably a supervisor there who's directing the patrol officers what to do. So this cat and mouse will continue until we get additional units there that have some other type of equipment. But again, it's not worth getting involved in a shootout in a populated area. So they're going to use extreme caution and make sure they can avoid that. And if he fires, then there'll be great consequences for him. But at this particular time, I understand there's a possible gun. They haven't verified, to my knowledge, that there is actually a gun.
Right. So it's Piedmont Avenue and Sumter Drive, Highland Park, obviously, to Dennis's point, a busy area on this Friday night. He is outnumbered by a number of LAPD officers. So here we are again in a similar situation, maybe a mile prior when we saw him stop. The vehicle is smoking. The two front tires are gone. You know, all that LAPD was saying to us was that this is a man with a gun. I don't know if that's the original want. we're working to get some more information on that. Nonetheless, somebody who's dangerous, who's doing everything that they can to stay out of custody. And you see some movement here from the suspect, the window down. It looks like maybe, Dennis, a hand out. Hard to tell.
Well, with the smoke, it's hard to tell, the smoke coming through, but obviously the officers will be able to see. They've got spotlights on the vehicles, on the police vehicles. They'll be able to do that, plus the air unit overhead have some high-intensity lights that they'll be able to utilize to illuminate the situation. But with the smoke coming out, you would think the car may be on fire because it wouldn't normally be smoking. So if the engine's on fire or some type of situation that is causing that smoke, that's not normal condition for a vehicle. So if that's the case and it erupts in flames, I'm sure he'll jump out of the car and they'll take him into custody. But they're using the proper caution, the proper procedure. They're doing exactly as they're instructed, as they're trained. No one's going to run up to the car and play John Wayne. They're going to hold a distance until he decides to surrender. And this could go on for quite a period of time. Apparently it has gone on for this particular moment. It's continuing at the stop and go. And now we're at the stop mode, and they're standing by, and individuals maybe be taunting the officers, which is not uncommon in a situation where they're playing cat and mouse. And that's what this appears to be, a cat and mouse game.
Yeah. That's exactly what it seems to be, unfortunately, because to your point, this can play out for some time. I was making the observation that I can't imagine how long it could go on given the damage to that vehicle. But hey, as long as he can stay out of custody, we've seen that they will do whatever that they can. So on your screen right now, it says pursuit of man with gun resumes in Highland Park. We thought that this was going to be over several minutes ago, but that's not the case. He's not giving up easily. Obviously, there is some sort of a communication between suspect and officers behind him. We know that, obviously, our vantage point from Skyfox versus what's actually happening down on the ground, Dennis, can be two very different stories because there's a lot more anxiety in the air and tension where they are, and there very well could be a communication, a dialogue underway, right?
Well, I could clearly, you see his hands, he's extending his hands outside the car. For whatever reason, he's making gestures towards the officers. You see both hands extending out the driver's window. And what the gesture is, I don't know. He's not getting out of the car, not exiting the car. Yet the car is smoking, which means there's something within that engine that is obviously generating that smoke. If there's a fire under there, just small ignition makes that happen. If it gets engulfed in flames, then we've got more problems to deal with, or he has more problems to deal with. But they're going to stay with this as long as it takes. They've got time on their side. There's no issue to run up on the individual, risk officers' lives, get involved in a shootout. That's the last thing they want to do. They want to avoid that at all costs. So clearly sufficient units. I'm sure supervisors dictating what the officers will be doing. And this will continue until the individual decides to surrender. They could bring in other vehicles, specialized vehicles the department utilizes if they need to. But this particular case, it looks like with the condition of that car will probably give out before anything else happens. There doesn't appear to be the condition that's going to be able to flee away at any great speed. And again, they're not going to run up on that car and open the door and yank him out. This is not going to happen.
Right.
Especially with the situation of a gun. When you're talking about a deadly weapon, the extreme caution, those officers, that's what they're trained to do, is use extreme caution when you have a suspect with a gun or a possible gun. You have to always imagine that they have a weapon, that it's loaded, and it only takes one round to kill someone. So that's a concern. They don't want to die over the situation. And whatever the individual was involved with prior to this situation, prior to the pursuit, that'll all account when they add it up from the initial stage when they first saw, was it a radio call, what prompted them to make the stop. We know there's damage to the car. Was there hidden runs involved? Just all kinds of factors come into play.
Yes, a whole lot to contend with here. And then as we had the wider shot, this looks like it's next to maybe a school, a rec center, and you saw some folks who may have been at an event at said building there, coming out to see looky-loos, understandably so. What's the activity with all the LAPD? There's somebody over the fence right now. You never want to get involved in these situations. I know it's a spectacle, but especially given that this man is armed or reportedly armed. You don't know where those bullets could fly. So hopefully those people stay clear. If you live in this area, stay clear. If you know anybody in this area, please give them the heads up. I'm looking at the clock right now, and we're going to wrap things up here on LA Live News tonight on Fox 11 Plus, but our coverage will continue online and then also on Fox 11 with Alex and Christine at the top of the 10 o'clock newscast. This likely will be still underway, and if it is, in the next few minutes before we say goodbye to you here on Fox 11 Plus, they will pick it up perhaps with an update on the Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock. We'll keep a watch. You can continue on online on foxla.com/live for more live coverage. In the meantime, Dennis Zine, Reserve Officer with LAPD, thanks so much for hopping on this Friday night.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, the standoff continues with an armed suspect in Highland Park. LAPD is the lead agency. I'm Marla Tejas. We thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you back here at 11 o'clock for Good Night LA.
Have safe.
The duo leaving the MasterChef kitchen tonight is Tana and Kate.
Oh.
Timothy and Athena, please say goodbye to Tana and Kate and head up to the safety of the balcony.
It's okay.
action going on here, as in no tires. Why this person thinks they're going to get away, hard to tell.
So at this point, we're sort of in standoff mode. They have not really done anything for a while. If that changes,